welcome back to our Chamber Tele-Town Hall, the Power Hour that we do periodically, and we're so glad to have you tuning back in with us again today. You know, it's hard to believe that November is less than a week away and we're heading into the holiday season. And we also know that fall is just such a special time of year here in South Carolina. It's a busy time with festivals and culture, arts and cultural events, and it's also a time when the weather is really, really special. Last weekend, we were fortunate to have wonderful weather and had a very successful historic Bluffton Arts and Seafood Festival. And then we're also looking forward to next weekend, hosting the Hilton Head Island Concours d'Elegance. I'll tell you, if you want to know what's happening and how to plan your weeks ahead, you can do so by signing up for our Low Country Lowdown, and you'll see a link to that in the chat box there. So I'd encourage you to do so, and each week you'll get an email that updates you on the latest happenings and all the things that are going on in the region. You know, I'm proud to announce that once again we also have been selected as a neighborhood champion this year, again in partnership with American Express and supporting their Shop Small campaign. And so you'll be seeing more information on that. Just as you know, it's so important to shop small businesses. This year is even more important. Seems like we say that every year, but it continues to be very, very important. And just like a lot of businesses out there, even small businesses are facing the supply chain issues. Speaking of supply chain issues, experts are talking about that it may last well into 2022. And we're going to do a deeper dive on that today, and we're thrilled to have with us really a national expert. John Drake is joining us from Washington, D.C. He's the Vice President of Supply Chain Policy for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And prior to that, John spent some time as a public policy executive for Amazon. And so I think he probably knows a thing or two about our nation's supply chain challenges. John, thank you for being with us, and we look forward to having an update from you this morning.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Talk to us a little bit, if you would, this morning about what you're seeing from a national to global perspective. We all read about the ships that are sitting out off the different ports, the challenges with getting them unloaded, and then the challenges with the trucking, and what you're seeing and kind of timelines on what to expect, and just an overall take from your perspective.
Yeah, you know, this is well, thank you for that. And I'll tell you, this is probably one of the top challenges facing the U.S. business community today. It's a long time coming. You know, in a lot of ways, this is sort of a hangover from COVID. And, you know, you're absolutely right that the challenge we're facing right now is not one that's going to be easily fixed or resolved in the short time. You know, a lot of the reasons for why we're here today really started with the shutdown orders that took place and how that shifted consumer demand. For one, you know, a lot of people, a lot of Americans who might have gone on vacations, who might have gone out to eat, who might have gone to concerts, you know, they were stuck at home during COVID. And what many Americans did in response was shift their spending habits to you know, online commerce, right? To going to Amazon, to going to Target, to going to Walmart. And during that time, a lot of these Americans, right? A lot of the factories that are responsible for producing these goods that Americans were buying were shut down. And so when all these factories came back online, as the COVID restrictions started to ease, we saw a huge influx of goods coming over from China and from Asia to satisfy these purchases that were being made. In a lot of ways, it's just completely overwhelmed our supply chain network in response. Our ports are overwhelmed. You know, we lost a lot of truckers due to COVID because of layoffs and lack of demand. And so there's workforce shortages as well that are preventing us from moving these goods to where they ultimately need to go. And you know what, I'll tell you, from a business standpoint, what this means is we're looking at increased inflation. It's a lot more expensive to move a container of goods from China here to the US. About a year ago, it cost about $1,500 to move a container here to the US. Today, we're hearing from members that that $1,500 cost is upwards of $25,000 to $30,000. And I got to tell you, if you're a small or medium-sized business, and a lot of times, it no longer is viable for you to do that sort of business if the cost of transportation is more than the actual cost of the contents that are in the container itself. And it's also leading to huge delays in getting stuff to where it needs to go. We're telling a lot of our members that, and we're telling a lot of the members of the public as well, that they need to do their Christmas shopping early, because the shortages that I think that we're beginning to see now, and I think a lot of Americans are seeing, we expect are only going to increase in the weeks ahead, especially as we go into the holiday shopping season. But even once the holiday shopping season is done, that we should not expect to see that the challenges we're facing right now will decrease in the new year or anytime soon.
John, thank you for that. And we have a question coming to us from Bob this morning. And Bob is asking about some of those companies that are buying their own cargo ships or leasing their own cargo ships. What do you see from them, and how will that lessen the length of time for shipments to come in?
Yeah, we're hearing that companies that are large enough to be able to do this, like Target, Walmart, they've done this, but this is not an ideal solution. And it's also not a solution that really works for the majority of U.S. businesses, because it still complicates the moves. It's still, you still have to navigate those shipments through the ports. And there's a lot of bottlenecks at the ports that can be really difficult to navigate no matter who you are. So it's certainly a workaround that some companies have explored. I think they're doing it at cost themselves. They're doing it because they really want to serve their customers.
John, I know you spent a little time at the American Trucking Association, and from your experience there and that leadership role that you had, talk to us about what we're experiencing once the containers are unloaded, then the challenges that we're facing from being able to get them to where they need to go via trucks.
Yeah, a real big pain point from COVID is the number of trucking companies that went out of business due to the expected lack of demand in the trucking space. In 2020, approximately 3 times the number of trucking firms went out of business as what happens in any given year. And what also happened with that is, because of the expected lack of demand, we lost approximately 100,000 trucking jobs. This is, the trucking industry, it is difficult to understate how important the trucking industry is to the American economy. The trucking industry moves 70% of the freight in this country. They're responsible for the last mile moves, and they're oftentimes responsible for, in addition to the railroads, moving those goods that are coming into the ports, off the ports and to the nearby warehouse or to the retail center. And the congestion that we're seeing at the ports is having a huge impact on the ability of the trucking industry to serve those ports and the businesses. I am hearing over and over again from our members that oftentimes they will try to, they're getting frustrated moves at the ports, or they're trying to bring a container, they're trying to pick up a container, and oftentimes they're getting turned away because the port cannot locate that container that they're looking to move off. There are so many containers that are piling up at the ports themselves. Oftentimes you'll see containers that are stacked 6 tall. We're hearing the stories that the warehouses at ports are at 120% capacity, which means that there's so much stuff that's sitting there that you can no longer move a truck easily to get a container, or a railroad to get a container off and move it off. So, there's a lot of frustration on the trucking side in getting stuff moving again. And I think until until folks continue to kind of push up and work together, these challenges are only going to continue.
Melissa is asking, how many container ships are off the port of Los Angeles or Long Beach, and the average number of days that they're having to sit there before they're unloaded?
So that's a good question. And the reason we keep coming back to LA and Long Beach is because LA and Long Beach is responsible for 40% of all the incoming goods that come into the United States. And the number of ships that are sitting at port or outside port continues to grow every day. I think if I remember correctly, there was reported 100 ships that were sitting outside the ports of LA and Long Beach. I think a few of those were being in the process of berthing, but majority of those are actually sitting outside the port waiting to come in. And I think the dwell time for those ships is averaging, once they're in the ports, it's averaging approximately 10 days or so. But those numbers are a few days old, so they may be improving quite a bit. But I will tell you from a point of comparison, that 10-day number is in comparison to the approximately 2 to 3 days you might see in any given quote unquote normal year.
We've heard about the conditions on those waiting ships. What can you tell us about those as the ships sit out waiting to be unloaded and the crews that are on those?
You know, it's really tough for those crews because, look, these folks who are manning these ships who are staffing these ships, in a lot of cases they've been at sea for days or weeks prior to coming to the port, and they're just essentially just sitting there in some ways sort of marooned, right, waiting to come back in. And it's also important to remember as well that the folks who are crewing these ships, oftentimes, during COVID, they were still doing this work, but they would be banned or they would be prohibited from coming on shore due to COVID restrictions. So, you really got to salute the men and women who are working these ships because of the conditions that they're working under right now, and the amount of time that they're sitting out waiting to come to shore. And know that when those ships are berthed, that there's going to be just as much pressure to get those ships unloaded and moving again. So there really isn't a whole lot of time for them to put their feet up and relax.
John, are you hearing any plans coming out of Washington on, as far as from government, on what solutions or possibilities might be to aid this situation?
Yeah, I got to tell you, we were really proud to sit down with the White House about 2 weeks ago, where we were able to bring a number of our members, Walmart, Target, FedEx, UPS, Samsung, and Home Depot. And, we sat down with the ports of LA and Long Beach, and we made a handshake commitment to essentially move certain amount of containers off the ports during the nighttime hours. And I think this was an important commitment because, one, these companies that stepped up did so certainly at expense for them. But what it does do is it opens up capacity for small and medium-sized businesses during the daytime hours. And I think, this is one important step towards moving towards what we think should be 24/7 operations across the board. A second thing that we're doing with the administration, and I think, is we're working with them to inform their decision-making process on solutions moving forward. So we've had members who have visited the ports with White House leadership and done a tour and a walkthrough of the operations of the ports to understand where there are opportunities to make operational improvements. And I think those conversations have been very successful. I think bottom line, a lot of the conversations and a lot of the work that the White House is doing right now, are not going to result in huge changes or solution to this problem within the next 3 to 4 months. But what is important is that we're bringing everyone to the table. We're looking to resolve problems in real time. And ideally, once we get through this year, those conversations are going to only continue. And with the passage of an infrastructure bill that I think will bring needed investment into our port facilities, and ideally, as well as looking at keeping the focus on how we can improve the operations of these ports going forward with long-term solutions and not just these quick solutions. Ideally, if we can keep the focus on, I think this will result in some long-term changes that will make our ports much more competitive, not just at LA and Long Beach, but also make them more competitive if you look at other ports around the world.
John, one last question for you. That's coming to us from Stu, and Stu's asking what you think the length of time will be, how long it will take to fix this challenge that we have.
You know, that's a good question. I'm hearing that a lot. And you know, there's certainly a range of opinion on this. You know, as I said at the top of the call, this situation that we're in right now was a long term in the making, and it's going to be a long time before we get out of it. You know, I think there's also going to be some headwinds going into next year that will probably prolong the crisis that we're in today. Specifically, those two events that I think will help those headwinds is we've got the Chinese New Year that will happen early next year. That always results in a slowdown of goods coming from Asian ports here to the U.S. And the second thing, and probably just as important, if not more so, is that the summer of next year, the longshoremen are expected to renew their contracts with the West Coast ports. And, you know, I think anyone who tracks these negotiations will tell you that there's always a lot of uncertainty. There's always work slowdowns and other disruptions because these negotiations can get really tense really quickly. And I think if you look at those two events, plus just the sheer amount of containers and chassis that are piling up at our ports and the amount of time it's taking to move them, I think it's very easy to estimate that the challenges we're seeing right now will last well into third quarter of 2022, if not, and probably beyond that.
John, thank you for being with us today. We thank you for your leadership on this important issue to everyone. And thank you for all that you and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce do on behalf of businesses and all communities and cities throughout the country.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before your members, and look forward to visiting you all sometime soon. Thank you.
Very, very good. Thank you. All right. We're going to bring things a little closer to home now, and we're going to be talking to a gentleman from the country's fourth largest port. And you may have seen some of the things floating, some of the ships floating around the Savannah harbor, and Jamie McCurry is going to talk to us about what's going on at the Savannah port. And Jamie, thank you for joining us today, and we're delighted to have you.
My pleasure. Certainly not much of a better view than from Hilton Head Island on the beach, looking at whether we do or don't have any ships waiting to come into port. But you know, John really covered the whole subject very well. I think had a lot of points that we see on a daily basis. You know, right now we come in each day and we're seeing, you know, between 22 and sometimes as much as 26 ships at anchor waiting to come in, which is highly unusual for Savannah. We're very fortunate here to have the single largest container terminal facility in the country, frankly, the Western Hemisphere. And that's afforded us a lot of space to continue to grow and to accommodate surges in cargo like we typically see this time of year. And normally, it would not be very unusual at all to have a ship or two at anchor waiting to come in just based on traffic or tidal delay or something like that. But to have a couple dozen is definitely not typical for Savannah. You know, I think there's not a whole lot that I could add to John's comments about, you know, what's going on in general and really the specifics here in Savannah fit that general description of the disruptions. But you know, I think that it's important to point out that, you know, workforce as a whole may arguably be the biggest factor here. With a supply chain that is not in any way designed to be turned off and back on again, it's not surprising that you would see a ripple effect of what happened, you know, 18 months ago, or slightly longer than that, when China shut down because of COVID and how that played out. But when so many Americans are at home, not able to travel, not able to go out to eat very much or even pick up to-goes that much, they start spending their money, because many of them continue to have that money on, you know, e-commerce shopping more than anything else. And that really drove the depletion in inventories back then, but also the retailers, their kind of corrective behavior to dipping inventories was to really, we've kind of said, instead of buying on a just-in-time basis, they have stocked up on a just-in-case basis. And so the amount of inventory that they've tried to build back is, much larger than what it was before. Americans have continued to shop at a much higher rate than what had been the normal rate. And so what has happened at many ports, and certainly has happened here, is that you've got this surge of import cargo that the facilities, even the biggest facility with the most cranes like Savannah, simply cannot absorb all at once. And even those that can handle the ships as fast as they need to be handled, there's not enough truck drivers and there's not enough people working in the warehouses to process those import boxes out of the ports. So we have seen import boxes staying on terminal 2 and 3 times as long as normal, which, if you think about in the context of the capacity of the facility, and again, this facility, the Garden City Container Terminal, being 1,300 acres, we have designed it to handle surges of about 20%, so that we could handle on any given day 20% more than the annualized volume of cargo that would flow through the place. Well, we would have needed to have 100% more capacity in some cases to handle the extended dwell times on terminal of these boxes. And again, the biggest factor there really is a workforce issue. It's not that the truck drivers are failing, it's just there's not enough of them and not enough power. And those trucks can only turn as fast as they can flow through the port terminals, as well as how fast they can drop off and get back with containers from the inland destination, which has to do with the workforce factor as well, of how are they, the warehouses, facilities, able to process those import containers kind of in one side of the building and out the other. And then there's the truck from the warehouse to the store itself and the ability to process that. And that's really where the system is kind of broken down, is the ability to process all of the consumption that we have, kind of endeavored to pass through. So, frankly, the port terminals around the country are generally built to a capacity that we could handle this surge in volume if it could flow in and out as fast as normal. Again, I said that we're seeing dwell times on terminal of 2 and 3 times normal. To be more specific about that, an import box would typically be on terminal between 1 and 3 days, maybe sometimes 4 days. Right now, the average is about 7, and in many cases, it's as high as 12 to 14. And that's really where the problem has come in our world. So I'm not sure if that's a good place to jump off to some Q&A, but I'm happy to keep on talking as much as you want, Bill.
All right, thank you. We have a question from Michael. And Michael's asking what the Port of Savannah, as a consumer, what does the Port of Savannah mean to us?
Well, so Savannah is the load center port for the southeastern United States. So we are, particularly when it comes to Asian trade, we are the predominant player in this region for Asian trade. And, and I'm sure that most of the folks on the call understand that that is the largest trading partner that we have as a country. So both imports and exports, that's a vital route. For you as a consumer, I guess theoretically that would tend to lead to lower transportation costs to the places that you would be buying it from. What you have seen, particularly as e-commerce has continued to expand, not just Amazon, but really all the large retailers, as you see these fulfillment centers popping up in close proximity to the consumption zone. So whatever the metropolitan area is, and in the case of a place like Savannah, you've got the processing that happens before you go to a fulfillment center, which is where a package gets put onto a delivery van to come to your house. So all that's happening, in this region close by. So that's good for timeliness of deliveries. It's again theoretically good for the cost of deliveries. It's certainly good for employment, and there's a lot of opportunities around all of that.
All right, Stu is asking if the Savannah port has any plan to be able to increase additional ships within a 24-hour period?
Well, we're adding a considerable amount of terminal capacity right now. We've got another 600,000 what we call TEUs, or 20-foot equivalent units of capacity will be coming online by the end of this calendar year, as well as another kind of similar capacity addition that'll come online in the next 18 months. On top of that, we are in the process of modifying one of our oldest container berth to be able to better handle the larger ships. And all of that will feed into the velocity of how fast we're able to accommodate the ships. But again, we would be able to process ships much faster than we are right now if we had consistent room on the terminal. But that's being compromised by the amount of time that these boxes are staying on terminal. So being able to have additional storage capacity will in and of itself help the dock side work, if you will, to move the ships themselves faster. Another thing that John mentioned, or a point that I guess was a question that was raised about retailers buying or leasing their own ships. In addition to that fact happening, there are a number of what we call extra loaders, which are vessels in addition to those that are typically scheduled on a weekly basis that are being, in some cases we're getting a week or less warning that they're coming. And that's been a factor in what you are seeing in terms of port delays. So it's not as much the ability of the ports to handle the regular schedule of ships coming and going, but that plus a significant additional level of traffic that's coming and going.
Jamie, Tom is asking, why are the per container cost fees rising so quickly?
Well, it's I think a supply and demand issue. And it's the spot rate. So if you're a Walmart or pick anybody else and you've got a fixed contract for a year, that rate is what it is. But if you're, I'll make up a company, Joe's Uniforms, and you need, a single container shipped from Shanghai to Savannah, full of aprons and t-shirts and pants or whatever the uniforms may be, that's you're going to schedule and get a spot rate. Those spot rates, because the large retailers are consuming so much of the capacity on these ships, those spot rates have been through the roof. And it's a supply and demand issue. We are starting to see some of those spot rates come down, but it's not an exaggeration to say that you have seen some examples of a 10x multiplier in what those spot rates might be for a particular shipper.
Jamie, thank you for joining us today. Certainly very, very helpful. Jamie is the Chief Administrative Officer for the Port of Georgia, and we're delighted to have you with us, and thanks for sharing it, and we'll continue to stay in touch so our listeners can learn more of the very important topic and what you all are doing to help.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right. We're going to bring things even closer to home now, and one of the topics that's very hot out there is the William Hilton Parkway Gateway Project, and here to talk about that and the town of Hilton Head Island's role in that is, and just how important it is the project manager, Sean Collin. Sean's the senior advisor to the Hilton Head Island town manager, and then also Sean will be introducing the town's consultant, MKSK, who is part of the project. Sean, it's an important task you have in front of you, and we appreciate you being with us today.
Yeah, good morning, Bill. Thanks for having me. It's so important. I haven't shaved in the last few days, trying to maximize time for this project. Thanks for having me. I think the star of the show you want to hear from is Brian Kinzelman, our consultant. But I want to just give a brief overview. We've been working for the last 7 or 8 months to evaluate this important project for the town of Hilton Head, the county, and the region. Is the only land connection to the mainland. This is a very important project and endeavor with 75-year life expectancy of the bridges. It's sort of a generational project, and we're happy to be involved. I'm happy to serve as project lead for the town. What we've done over the past several months is really do a fundamental review end to end of the proposed project. We've looked beyond the project limits as proposed from the county and the state too, to see what the impacts would be downstream on the Cross Island Parkway and on the business route as well. And what has really been of benefit is a series of community engagements and discussions with town council to help develop these recommendations to translate the local community expectations and be able to translate those in a way that enhance the project. We have looked at validation of key fundamental performance goals that were part of what was shared in the environmental assessment here over the summer. And we've done a good job monitoring public input and community feedback that we received at the town, that the project manager, DOT, has received as well. And we sort of reached a milestone on October 12th. These local concepts and recommendations that have been refined from April all the way through October were presented to town council, and they endorsed this preferred local position. And we've been able to share these recommendations with the county as a project sponsor and the state as the agency managing the project for the county. And we've received some positive feedback. We'll continue discussions with them moving forward. I want to thank the county administrator and his staff, along with state and DOT leadership, for their continued willingness to work together to get this project right. And that's the ultimate goal. We want to get the project right. We want it to meet the expectations of the local community and be something that we're proud of at the end of the day. We have Brian Kinselman. He's been our lead project consultant with MKSK. We've also had HDR, a transportation engineering consultant, to provide some support and validation to a lot of the recommendations that have been developed. But I'd like to turn it over to Brian with MKSK to kind of go through these recommendations and concepts with you today, and then we can answer questions that you may have. Brian?
Great. Thanks, Sean. Great summary. I want to dive right in, if I may, with our recommendations slide deck to give everybody a broad understanding of the process we've been through that Sean just summarized and the recommendations that have come out the end of that public process. So I'm going to share my screen. As Sean had suggested, we've been through the last few months a fairly extensive public engagement process to take the local opinion on the proposition that is put forth thus far. The county project, as he had suggested, that is being prepared by the state. Our objective was to bring that local knowledge and community-based understanding to the DOT preferred alternative, to get the local flavor, as it were, the local opinion. So we were engaged to create a gateway to the island, not just moving automobiles and trucks, which is extremely important, as we just heard from the gentleman earlier, but it's about creating an emotional and an attractive and an environmentally correct approach to the island. So the fixing the transportation issues was the first problem to be solved by the county and town and DOT, but we've added two more, and that is to improve the quality of life, not just move automobiles faster, but move them safer and take into consideration that this is a place where people live and work and play, and also to create that gateway onto the island. As we all know, coming west to east, once you get that broad view of the open water, it is quite an emotional charge, and we want to encourage that with fine bridge architecture and roadway corridor. So we've broken the project down into 4 zones, starting at Moss Creek intersection and moving to essentially the Cross Island through the Stony neighborhood. We've looked at each of those individually, but corridor wide, we've looked to reduce the travel lanes to the extent possible, still providing for adequate and safe movement of automobiles, but reducing the amount of property that's impacted. looking at details such as raised curbs for the medians, varying the alignment of the roadway so it's not so much a drag strip or a speedway, but something that is more of a meandering parkway, which is consistent with the rest of the island. Take advantage of some of the town-owned property to help those improvements to happen. Look at smart signal technology that moves automobiles and truck traffic more efficiently. Thinking always of trails for pedestrians and bicyclists, not just for automobiles and truck traffic, and have that comprehensive system of trails that is consistent with the attitudes of the island. And always encouraging those beautiful views to the water, which is in fact the signature of the island. Those are issues that we've applied across all geographic areas of the corridor, but specifically to those 4 geographies. At Moss Creek, we've suggested that this is really where the experience of entering Hilton Head Island begins. As you leave the Moss Creek intersection moving eastbound, you come underneath the flyover of the Bluffton Parkway, and that's your gateway experience. That's where we want to capture people's attention relative to signage and landscape and bridge architecture and the like. Not on the island, but speaking to the island. The bridges themselves, we want to reduce the bridge mass, again, always providing for proper traffic movement, but increase the non-motorized trail, the bike trail that does not exist there today, so that we can move pedestrians and bicyclists from Bluffton and the mainland onto the islands. And also think about the bridge architecture as this moves forward. What are the details of the railings and the parapet walls, the color and the texture of the concrete and the materials? Those are all important aesthetic issues. And think about the breakdown lanes. We need breakdown lanes as evidence time to time as we have disabled vehicles on the bridge. But let's do that smartly. So the local alternative recommends, instead of one big broad deck, to have 2 bridges, the same number of travel lanes, reduce the travel lanes to the extent possible, provide for a enhanced bridge architecture and a slightly widened pedestrian and trail system with overlooks, 2 of them or possibly more, overlooking the deep water that is the crossing from the mainland. On to Jenkins Island, as the bridge passes from Pinckney onto Jenkins, to consolidate the access, curb cuts and intersections to one single intersection at Windmill Harbor, and to create that as a signalized intersection so that we don't have folks inadvertently interrupting traffic flow. Overall graphic of what that may look like, again, undulating the alignment of the roadway, creating a broader median so that you're not looking at 6 lanes of traffic, you're looking at 3 lanes of traffic within which you are motoring. Eliminating the Jenkins Road intersection, and again relocating it to the Windmill intersection, eliminating at Windmill the crossing for pedestrians and bicyclists, and to, as you can see in this graphic, to allow for the green signal for the flow through traffic to be more of the priority to keep traffic moving, but still safe passageway for pedestrians and bicyclists underneath the new bridges, so that we've got interconnectedness on both sides of the corridor with bicycles. On to Stony, which, as we all know, is the tightest segment of the corridor given private property. We've suggested that we continue with traditional left turn lanes and intuitive intersection configurations, and as opposed to some of the U-turn configurations that the original proposal had suggested. Eliminate left turn motions in that eastbound direction onto Old Wild Horse, I should say. That's a neighborhood street, very small in scale, and we didn't think it was appropriate necessarily to introduce more traffic. always showcase the Gullah Geechee culture and the history of this significant neighborhood. And that can be done through maybe the enhancement of some park space that is town owned on the south side of the corridor moving forward. Also a longer term policy for town consumption, not for DOT, and that is to consider a next generation plan or strategy for the Stony neighborhood, and also to entertain a not-for-profit development corporation that may be a tool for the advancement of not just Stony, but other redevelopment districts on the island. So through Stony, this suggests let's again reduce the lane width. Let's take as little property as we have to. Let's consolidate curb cuts. Let's enhance the landscape of the median so that those folks that live and work on that section of the corridor aren't looking at 6 lanes of traffic, and enhance the landscape treatment on the outboard side of the corridor so those residents and businesses, again, are protected from the roadway itself. Left turn motions, 2-lane left turn motions onto Squire Pope to satisfy the traffic needs into Hilton Head Plantation and the businesses on Squire Pope. Again, the elimination of a turning motion onto Old Wild Horse and protect that neighborhood street. Some modest improvements at Spanish Wells and Wild Horse intersection, continuing to have those left turn motions, so it's a fully functioning intersection, but moving more efficiently and safely. So as a whole, the picture of the Stony neighborhood suggests that we have this, again, a town initiative of a new marshfront park that's on the south side of the corridor, having a median that brings attractiveness to the whole corridor, minimizing the curb cuts out onto the parkway to the extent possible, and making for more intuitive and safer intersections. So all of that, again, this is a reiteration of what was stated before, a listing of corridor-wide recommendations, and then the zone-specific recommendations as was just stepped through graphically. As Sean had suggested, conversations with the county and the state continue, and further coordination with project partners is an ongoing process as this moves into final planning and design. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you all may have.
Thank you for that. We appreciate the update. I have a few questions for you, and Brian and Sean, you answer them as you see fit, the proper person to do so. The first question is coming to us from Melinda, and Melinda is asking about turning the old bridge into a linear park. Has been something that has been discussed, and what do you see as the possibility of that becoming a reality?
Yeah, I'll take that one, Brian, if you don't mind. Yeah, that was a concept that was evaluated and vetted by all the project partners, the town, the county, the state, and the community. There are some limitations with that treatment, and that currently it's a state asset. The state would not object if the county or the town would like to take over ownership of that facility. That would entail a significant ongoing annual maintenance budget, and it also has impacts to the overall project on constructability. Makes it a little harder to phase the project. It may add a couple more years to the project schedule. And I think at this point, our local recommendation has not included that as an item to move forward. I believe the town and the county and the state have sort of general agreement that a new bridge with bike and ped facilities is a more cost-effective treatment for consideration.
Thank you for that clarification, Sean. And the next question is coming from Stuart. And Stuart is asking, have computer simulations been run to validate that the project design will deliver greater throughput of traffic through the existing traffic lights on the island?
I guess I'll take that one too, Brian, if you don't mind.
Yes, that's
How long do
right.
we have, Bill? I'll try to keep this brief. So KCI, the county's transportation engineering firm on the project, had done computer simulations. They had developed a baseline based on existing conditions and sort of a no build. They evaluated their preferred alternative that was part of the environmental assessment and shared at the public hearing. They did computer simulations on those alternatives, as well as the intersection movements. We've done additional work on simulations to understand travel time differences, especially with the intersection movements and the alternative that was presented by DOT on behalf of the county this summer, and then also our alternative. One final note is we've asked HDR, our transportation engineering consultants, to develop that end-to-end calculation and simulation. And so we'll have that available here as we continue discussions sometime here in the very near future.
Okay, question here from Thomas. Thomas is asking that, saying that a light at Windmill Harbor seems counterintuitive and somewhat dangerous considering the speed of the bridge. And why does MKSK think that that's the best option?
Sean, I can touch upon that if I may. We've, as we've suggested, the entire corridor is going from 2 lanes to 3 lanes. So by definition, there's more capacity. Also, the speed of the corridor is 40 to 45 miles an hour, I believe, Sean, posted speed. The geometry of the bridge, the new bridge, as it enters onto Jenkins Island, is a broader curve with better visibility. And with smart signal technology, we've got to accommodate those north-south movements for those in Windmill and those moving to the north of the corridor. But with that smart signal technology, that signal is vastly green in the throughput direction. Again, we've removed pedestrian and bicycle crossing at that intersection, which even further allows for the green signal to increase in the east-west throughput. So we've got to provide for local access to residents and businesses while we're also providing for throughput from moving east to west. So all users need to be satisfied.
Brian, thank you for that. And another question coming from Jeffrey. Jeffrey is asking, from the beginning to the end, what will that time frame look like as far as the start of the new bridge to the completion date?
Yeah, I'll jump in there, Brian. So I can just give you the general schedule that's been proposed by DOT as the managing project or the project manager for the county. Getting through this preferred alternative and this initial alignment is a key step. We're getting approval from the Federal Highway Administration. There will be another year and a half or so, 2 years of detailed design work. And then they're proposing, if it's a new 6-lane bridge or 2-3-lane bridges, that it'll be approximately 3-year construction period once they have all of their permits in place. So, we're probably looking at 4, 5 or so years from now to have a new facility and corridor in place and open.
All right, Sean and Brian, thank you so much for being with us. Very interesting information. Sean, on the slides, if we wanted to make people, where can people find those? Where would you suggest they go? To the town's website?
Yes, sir. We've got a project page for the Gateway Corridor project. It's got all the presentations that MKSK has made over the series of discussions with council. And so also links to the DOT preferred alternative and the environmental assessment and their materials. So town's website would be a great landing point for information.
All right. Thank you both for joining us today. Very informative, and we appreciate your time.
Thanks for having us.
Our next speaker this morning, we're going to shift gears, and knowing that how Concours d'Elegance has become one of the state's marquee events and also one that has the state's highest net worth event, something that maybe we didn't know, but it's good to know that. And also, you don't have to be a car buff to enjoy one of the region's biggest and best weekends. And so if you like cars, great. And if you don't, it's still something you want to see. And here today to talk to us about this year's show is the president of the Hilton Head Island Concours d'Elegance, Lindsay Harrell. Lindsay, welcome and tell us about the show and what we're going to see in just a few days.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks for having me. We're really excited. We had a year off, and what the year off gave us was a lot of time to plan for this year. And we have our largest event ever planned for this coming next weekend, actually, on the island. We have seen record ticket sales. We have a record number of cars planning to attend. And Bill, to your point, you do not have to be a car person to enjoy this show. When I started at this event way back when, I won't say how long ago that was, but I was not a car person. I've quickly become one though, but these are not cars. These are works of art. So you can appreciate them whether you love cars or you just like admiring something pretty with a cool interior. But we've got this year, as I mentioned, a record number of cars, and I just want to spend some time going through some highlights of some things we're really excited to share with everybody next weekend. The Concours itself, which is the Sunday show, Sunday, November 7th at the Port Royal Golf Club, that is the finale of the whole event. That is the heartbeat of who we are. It's the basis for what we were founded for. We have over 250 cars and motorcycles that will be a part of that show on Sunday. And that is about 50 more than we normally have, actually over 50 more than we normally have. And we've got a couple of really special features this year that we're really excited about. Stutz is our honored mark. For those of you who do not know what a Stutz is, don't worry, I didn't either, again, before I started this job. But Stutzes were pre-war cars made in the early 1900s into the 1930s. And we are going to have, to our knowledge, the largest collection of Stutzes on display at one time. I think the only other event that's come close is Pebble Beach. So we're kind of neck and neck with Pebble Beach, which if you're familiar in the Concours world, Pebble Beach Concours is kind of the granddaddy of all of the American events. We're going to have 26 different Stutzes on display, ranging from as early as 1914 to 1937. We're going to have an anniversary class this year for the 100th anniversary of the Moto Guzzi motorcycle, which is really special. And we've got a new sponsor joining us this year with new Moto Guzzis as well to celebrate that. We've got some new classes to bring in some younger fans. Prior to this year, our Concours has always been dedicated to vehicles that are 1973 or earlier. And this year we've expanded. We're welcoming some newer makes and models to the show to help draw in a younger audience. So we've got a class of homologation specials. And if you don't know what a homologation car is, I can give you a quick synopsis. It's essentially when a manufacturer wants to make a race car, they've got to make a limited number of production models for testing purposes. So they're limited number models. They're very cool. They're newer. Some examples that you'll see there are a 2006 Ford GT and a 2003 Panos. We've got two classes of what we're calling future classics of the 20th and 21st centuries. And that's going to be a really cool, sexy class. We're going to have a 1995 Acura NSX, which is a very cool car if you're not familiar with that, a 1991 Ferrari F40, and a 2012 Mercedes-Benz AMG, the Gullwing, which is always really fun to see. And these are just a few examples. I'm not going to give you everything. You've got to come to the show if you want to see it all. And then we've got a new class this year, which is really special. It's the AC Cobra family class. And we're going to have 9 Shelby Cobras out there on display, which Shelby Cobras are very rare. So this is a really unique class. One of the cars is coming from former racer, legendary racer Bobby Rahal, who's been our honorary chairman in the past. He's coming back this year to bring his car to compete. And we've got a 1965 Shelby Cobra that's coming that was formerly owned by the Fast and Furious star Paul Walker. So we've got amazing cars on display for the Concours, new things you've never seen before at the show. And we're going to have over 90 judges from throughout the entire country and some from Canada that are coming in to help us judge all of these cars. And that's just Sunday. So Saturday is our Car Club Showcase. We will have some new themes that we've never featured before. We're going to have an Auto Italia theme and an American Power and Ingenuity theme. So those will be displayed on the fairways at the Port Royal Golf Club and will be a lot of fun and something we've never done before. We will be hosting the first ever Legends of the Autobahn event on the East Coast. That is a partnership between the BMW, Mercedes, and Audi Clubs of America. They host this event annually in Monterey as part of the Pebble Beach Monterey Car Week. This is the first time they're hosting it on the East Coast, and they picked Hilton Head to host it. So we're thrilled to have that. That is going to be also at the Port Royal Golf Club. That is 150 additional cars that we'll have on display on Saturday, included with your Saturday ticket. There's no extra charge to see that piece of the show. And then, of course, we've got the Aero Expo at the Hilton Head Island Airport, where we'll have a number of amazing aircraft on display paired with Concours cars. And we've got a lot of new aircraft coming in this year, flying in this year. We've got some Stagger wings, which are really special. We've never featured those before. We've got a 1957 Lockheed. We've got a 2021 Beach King Air and a helicopter from the Coast Guard. So we're going to have a lot going on Saturday and Sunday. I also want to just point out some special features that we're going to have this year, Bill. We're featuring, again, our Women Driving America program, which we started in 2019. And we have seen an increase of over 50% in female participants in our event just from 2019 to 2021. So we will have a number of female-owned cars on display, and we have a number of incredible female judges that are joining us and judging the Concours with us on Sunday. And one of my favorites that you'll see out there is Lynn St. James, who, if you don't know her name, she is a legendary race car driver. She was the first female Indy 500 Rookie of the Year, and this will be her first time joining us at this portion of the event. She's never been to the Hilton Head Island Concours side before, so we're really excited to have her here and joining us as part of our Women Driving America program. We're featuring electric cars. That's the hot topic, right? I think everyone has heard of an electric car at this point in time. And we're going to showcase the history and present of electric cars. And a lot of people don't realize this, but electric cars were actually made in the early 1900s. So we're going to have 10 cars there that range from 1901 to 1932. And then we'll have a lot of new cars and new technology on display from BMW, McLaren, Tesla. So it's going to be really a story of the whole life of the electric vehicle, from where it started to where it's come. And we've had some amazing people helping us source the cars for that exhibit, which has been a lot of fun. A couple other quick special cars that you won't want to miss. We are partnering with the Haggerty Driver Foundation again this year with the National Historic Vehicle Register. They're going to be bringing in 4 spectacular cars off of the National Register. Again, I'm not going to give them all away, but I'll share 2 of them with you. One is the first ever passenger Duesenberg. It's famously known as the Castle Duesenberg, that's coming in from the Auburn Cord Duesenberg Museum. And the other one is complete opposite, the Lamborghini Countach that was featured in the movie Cannonball Run. So it'll be a vast display. It's 4 cars out of the 30 cars on the National Register will be here with us next weekend. And we will have, from the Peterson Museum in Los Angeles, they are bringing in for us, from Speed Racer, the Mach 5 Racer, which will be on display on our Driving Young America Boulevard, both Saturday and Sunday. So if you were a fan at all of that show, come out and see it. It is wild looking. A few events happening in the community that I want to let you know about, in addition to the main events at the Port Royal Golf Club. If you come out to the show on Saturday, stay around after our awards ceremony. From 4 to 6, we do host our Satisfy Your Thirst after party, which is presented by our partners at Haggerty. That's from 4 to 6 o'clock. It's behind the clubhouse at the Port Royal Golf Club. It's not an extra ticket. We have live music from the Synergy Twins. They're electric violinists from the Greenville, South Carolina area. And we have 11 different vendors offering tastings from local distilleries, breweries, and wineries. So it's actually a really fun event. It's kind of one of our hidden gems that not a lot of people know about just yet, but it's a really fun way to finish the day on Saturday. We have a lot of walking tours this year and seminars and detailing demonstrations that are happening throughout the weekend. One of my favorites is on Saturday. We will be hosting our Designers Greatest Hits Tour, where the featured designers that come in and support the event and support our charity will be doing a walking tour on property on Saturday and taking you around to their favorite cars on the field. And this year's designers are Maury Callum, who just retired as the head of design from Ford, Craig Metros, who just retired from the head of design of trucks and SUVs at Ford. So the new Ford Bronco that everyone's loving, he is responsible for that design. We have a gentleman named Michael Simcoe coming in from Detroit. He is the head of design currently for General Motors. We have another gentleman retired who was a special vehicle designer at GM. His name is Kip Wasenko. And one of our tried and true designers that we love having every year is Jay Ward from Pixar Animation Studios. So those 5 guys will be taking you around the show field to their favorite cars on Saturday. It's a really special kind of intimate experience that you don't get at a lot of other concourse. We're proud that we get to do that here at Hilton Head. And then outside of what we host, there are a few other events in the community next week that I think are fun to point out. There's the Grand Motoring Film Festival on Thursday night at the Art Center of Coastal Carolina. It's an 80s themed night, and they're going to be featuring The Secret Race Across America, which is a documentary about the Cannonball Run. So that event is Thursday night at the Art Center. It's from 5 to 9. It includes a cocktail party and an 80s themed car display outside of the Art Center. It's $55 a person. It's a lot of fun, and it's a really fun way to start the weekend. Michael Anthony's is hosting a tableside wine dinner on Thursday night as well. They have reservations ranging from 5:30 to 7. And Nunzio's is hosting their Diamonds of the Kitchen Truffle Dinner on Wednesday night at 6:32. And these are all part of the Concours schedule. Information for all of these events can be found on our schedule page on hhiconcours.com. But we're really excited, as you can tell. I hope you can sense my enthusiasm. And then just last, before I close it out and open it to questions, I do want to point out from the charity side what we're doing this year. Coming out of last year, which was a challenging year, not being able to host our event or raise money, we weren't really sure how we were going to do from the charity angle, but our Driving Young America Fund and the committee behind that fund have dedicated to give out 6 different scholarships in 6 different categories to support students who want to be in the automotive or aviation industries. So we're donating $30,000 in scholarships this fall during the event this year for a Tools for Techs program, an aviation program, a motorsports program, an automotive restoration program, a female initiative to make sure we support females in this industry as well, and also one scholarship that is dedicated to a student in Beaufort County who wants to pursue an automotive career. So we're really excited to be, pushing our charitable cause and supporting students that want to help move this industry forward. We're really excited to be back at Port Royal. Our partners there have just been amazing, and the West End has been amazing. And we hope everyone here today will come out and join us next weekend. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to take questions.
Lindsay, thank you. That was a comprehensive update, and your passion and enthusiasm, I can tell, will lead to a great week on Hilton Head Island with the Concours d'Elegance. We do have a couple of questions for you. One is coming from Robert, and Robert is asking if there are any tickets left for the Friday night Flights and Fancy.
Unfortunately, that event is sold out. I would say all of our hospitality events have they've sold out faster than we've ever seen before this year. And our ticket sales have just gone crazy. I think it's a combination of, people missing the event from last year and people, itching to get out after COVID. So unfortunately, our Flights and Fancy is sold out.
Congratulations on the number of tickets that have been sold, as well as the number of exhibitors, and the largest ever on both cases is certainly a tribute to you, your board, and your volunteers, and the community thanks each of you for your service and what you do to make this such a great event. One last question I see here is Steve is asking what the number of attendees you expect to have during the weekend.
It's hard to tell. I mean, our advanced online sales for general admission are up amazingly high. The last I saw was at the end of the middle of October. And at that point, our general admission alone was up 300%. So we have been spending the last few weeks prepping for bigger crowds changing our food orders, changing our shuttles, adding more restrooms, things, glamorous things like that. But we are preparing for a larger crowd. If the weather is good and day of sales are strong, we're definitely going to see our biggest crowd ever.
Well, that's super. And you won't want to miss it, November 5 through 7 at Port Royal. And go out and support and just have a wonderful time, because it's an event. If you haven't been to it before, it's just a fun day. And Lindsay, thank you for joining us today.
Thank
and
you, Bill.
Best of luck for the upcoming weekend.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Hope to see you at the show.
Very good. Lindsay Harrell, talking all things Concours d'Elegance. As we get ready to close out today, I just first of all want to remind everyone of another wonderful event that's taking place, and that's Crescendo. Crescendo will be happening all through through November the 13th. So if you haven't had a chance to participate in any of those events, I would certainly encourage you to do so. And thank you for being with us today. We're very appreciative of your time. We're very appreciative of our speakers' time. And also, as we close out, I simply want to say, be kind. It's very important that we all would be kind and stay safe, and don't forget to love each other. Have a great rest of your day.